Exclusive contract novel of Feilu Fiction Network. Siheyuan. Move in after being a policeman, win thoroughly, traveling through the courtyard until 1962, he became an ordinary resident. At the beginning, Zhang Guohui became a glorious police officer. When he returned to the house left by his parents, Zhang Guohui found that it had already been occupied by the Jia family. How dare the guy occupy the police's house? Zhang Guohui directly gave Jia and Zhang a luxurious tour of the prison. As he progressed further, Zhang Guohui discovered that there were indeed many small secrets among the beasts. The deaf old lady locked Silly Zhu and Xu Damao together for the sake of Silly Zhu. Yi Zhonghai embezzled a large amount of money to control the foolish pillar for retirement. Silly pillar still likes to knock on people's sticks. As a police officer, Zhang Guohui is overjoyed. Punishment is too severe. Zheng Qiu doesn't know how to get promoted. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 001. Becoming a Police Officer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In early spring of 1960. Just after the Chinese New Year, the capital is filled with a joyful atmosphere everywhere. Walking on the street, Zhang Guohui couldn't help but feel a little emotional as he looked at this unfamiliar and familiar environment. He is not from this world. A few years ago, I traveled to this world of poultry hiding in a courtyard house. Father unfortunately sacrificed his life for the country in the last few battles. My mother lives in a courtyard and is a fourth-level fitter in a steel rolling mill. She also passed away a few years ago due to work-related injuries, leaving Zhang Guohui alone. Zhang Guohui did not give up and, relying on himself, successfully got into the police academy. I thought I would never return to this place in my lifetime, but I didn't know that fate had tricked me and that Zhang Guohui had been assigned to the capital. Becoming a prosperous police officer of this era. I can also be considered to have an iron rice bowl. Besides, there is also a house in the courtyard, and with the parents' savings and pension, it's not bad to marry a wife and live a peaceful life. Zhang Guohui thought so. It is worth mentioning that Zhang Guohui currently has a considerable amount of savings. It adds up to over 1,500. In this era, the existence of 1,000 yuan household is extremely rare. Zhang Guohui followed the address, holding a letter of introduction and appointment letter, and arrived at the police station of this era. "Hello comrade, do you need anything?" As soon as they arrived at the door, a police officer greeted Zhang Guohui. Zhang Guohui took out a letter of introduction. "Hello comrade, I am here to take office. Here is my letter of introduction." The police officer standing guard at the entrance took a look and confirmed that there was no problem, then pointed the way to Zhang Guohui. "Go up to the second floor here, and the one on the far right is the director's office. You can find him." After speaking, I saluted Zhang Guohui. Zhang Guohui also stood straight and turned back. Holding the introduction letter, Zhang Guohui arrived at the entrance of the director. "Knock on the door." "Come in." A majestic and heavy voice echoed behind the door. Zhang Guohui walked in. I saluted and said seriously, "Hello Director, Officer Zhang Guohui has come to report. This is my letter of introduction." "Hands up, hand it to the director." The police chief, Bao Baogua, is a middle-aged man in his 40s, wearing a pure white police uniform with no expression on his face. Upon hearing Zhang Guohui's self-introduction, his furrowed brow slowly opened. "Zhang Guohui. Number 95 Luogu Lane, Nantong. Zhang Weigua's son." The director quickly remembered. Zhang Guohui nodded and said, "Yes, director." Security Guo's expression changed from shock to joy, and he suddenly stood up and grabbed Zhang Guohui's hand. "Zhang Guohui. Are you Zhang Weigua's son?" Bao Guo was a little excited. "I didn't expect you to be assigned to my side. Sit down quickly." The situation was somewhat unexpected, and Zhang Guohui was still a bit confused. "Director, do you know my dad?" Security Guo was quite happy and said, "Of course I do. Your father is my team leader. I have heard that he has a son named Zhang Guohui here for a long time. When I am appointed to come and find you again, you will no longer be there." Oh. Zhang Guohui never expected such a relationship to exist. Zhang Guohui nodded and said, "Yes, after my mother passed away in an accident, I went to the National Police Academy and managed to get through the ups and downs." With a bitter smile, he said, "It's not like I've been assigned again." The security country looked a bit sad. "Child, you've been suffering these years." The security country doesn't even need to think to know how Zhang Guohui has been living these years. In this era of cannibalism, it takes countless courage to survive. Zhang Guohui grinned broadly and said, "Director. Your father is my team leader, my name is Baoguo. When nobody is around, call me Uncle. Okay. It's all over now, and the country hasn't mistreated us martyrs' families. We don't have to pay a penny for education or anything, and we have been receiving subsidies. We can make do with it and don't have to endure hardship." Seeing Zhang Guohui's broad smile, Security Guo felt even more uncomfortable in his heart. "I sighed in my heart, just like his father, they are both strong people." Security Guo patted Zhang Guohui's shoulder and said, "God has also given me the opportunity to take care of you. You have been assigned to me. Guohui, do you want to come and stay at my house without any relatives or reasons in this capital? Your family only consists of Uncle and Sister, and I happen to take good care of you for the other brothers." Zhang Guohui thought for a moment and shook his head. "No need, Uncle. I have a house in Luogu Lane, Nantong. I've been used to it since I was young, so I don't need to go anymore. Actually, Zhang Guohui has another reason. That means his system can only be activated when he reaches the courtyard house. With his cheats, Zhang Guohui believes that he will not do poorly. I just don't know what my cheat is yet." Security country sighed inwardly and said, "Okay, you've grown up and have your own ideas, that's a good thing. Come on, Uncle will handle your onboarding and give you another day off later. That old house has been unoccupied for so many years, it definitely needs to be cleaned up properly. Also, if there's anything you need Uncle N's help with, just make a sound. Do you know?" The security country, who is not good at words, said a lot of heartfelt words. Zhang Guohui also felt warm in his heart. As a person of 2 lifetimes, he could distinguish between what was truly good for himself and what was superficial. "Got it, Uncle N." Subsequently, the security department has arranged for Zhang Guohui to join the company, separating clothes and daily tools. Zhang Guohui's job has been temporarily settled as a police officer. The local security department in charge also took Zhang Guohui's interests into consideration and assigned him to Luogu Lane in Nantong. By the time he left the police station, Zhang Guohui had already changed his appearance. The tough and handsome face exuded a hint of confidence. Wearing a cool police uniform on Zhang Guohui was just right, adding a touch of heroism. At the same time, he was holding the 10 yuan that the security guard had stuffed into his hand, although Zhang Guohui stated that he has money and quite a bit. But the paranoid security guard Guotai believes that it is Zhang Guohui who has a thin skin and is embarrassed to ask. Zhang Guohui felt somewhat helpless about this and smiled as he walked towards Nantong Luogu Lane. Chapter 002. Does the Jia family occupy the house? Too harsh. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking at the 3-in and 3-out courtyard in front of me. Zhang Guohui has just stepped forward. A long-lost voice can be heard in my mind. Ding, the resentment value system is activated. Zhang Guohui almost shouted happily. After waiting for many years, my golden finger has finally arrived. Ding, have you received the beginner gift pack? Claim. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining the system's hidden space and obtaining 100 resentment points. Zhang Guohui was stunned for a moment. Is that all? Ding, the system's function is being reported, and the host can obtain resentment points on the animals' bodies and freely spend resentment points. The usage method is as follows. It can be used on animals to magnify their inner darkness and become a true beast. You can also exchange various items in the mall. Ding, the task of punishing animals and maintaining Nan Tong Luo Guliang has been handed over to the host. Zhang Guohui couldn't help but say, is that all? Is that what I care about? What I care about is that there are so few rewards for Mao, a novice. They are all system bombers, sending various weapons and equipment casually, but when it comes to themselves, it's just a space. Zhang Guohui roast a few times. Fortunately, the system has already been activated. This is good news for Zhang Guohui. Secondly, to become a real beast. Enlarge the dark side of their bodies. Will there be any criminal activity? Looking at the clothes on my body. Zhang Guohui suddenly felt that this didn't seem like a garbage system either. Enter the courtyard. There are a total of 5 or 6 rooms in the front yard, and the changes are not significant. Zhang Guohui is very familiar with this place. I just plan to go back to my own room and take a look. An old man wearing glasses, appearing somewhat ghostly and thin, walked out. He gave Zhang Guohui a good look. Police officer, come here. Yan Bugui abruptly stopped. You. Are you? Zhang Guohui. That kid from the Zhang family. Yan Bugui couldn't believe it. Zhang Guohui smiled and said, Teacher Yan's memory is a bit bad. It's me, I haven't seen you in just a few years. Has it changed a lot? Yan Bugui sneered and said, it's either amazing or surprising. The young man has grown taller and more handsome. No, how did you come back? Did you go to school out of town? Zhang Guohui pointed to the police uniform on his body and said, well, I've become a police officer and been assigned to our alley. Coincidentally, there's also my house here. I've moved back in. Talking about houses and moving back to live. Yan Bugui's expression suddenly became less attractive. Gulu swallowed a mouthful of water and said, isn't that the end of the calf? Teacher Yan, what are you saying? Yan Bugui said, it's okay. You should go back and take a look yourself. Oh, then I'll go back first. After finishing, let's reminisce about the past. Yan Bugui hurriedly ran home. Son of a bitch, the calving is over. The boy of the Zhang family is back. Zhang Guohui, said the third aunt for a moment, yeah, it's that kid. Hurry up and tidy up, don't cook for now. The courtyard might be in chaos. Hurry up and take a look. Let's take a walk, let's go take a look. By the way, why did that kid come back, said the third aunt, happy to watch the excitement Yan Bugui. I've become a police officer. Ah. The old two were both surprised. Arrived at the middle courtyard. This is almost the most populous courtyard in this quadrangle. The yard is spacious, with children playing with mud and running wildly. There is also a figure that makes Zhang Guohui unhappy. The thief of the courtyard house, stick meme. At this moment, I was playing and frolicking with a few children there. Oh, just don't let me have it. When my gaze falls on my own room. Zhang Guohui was bewildered. The originally uninhabited house was slowly emitting green smoke from the chimney, and the door was filled with daily necessities. It's obvious that someone is living here. Zhang Guohui is both angry and funny. It depends on whether one has gone to school in another city, so the animals have moved in, right? Zhang Guohui walked towards the room with an unpleasant expression on his face. Just lifted the door curtain. Bangji hurriedly ran over. Pushing Zhang Guohui, who are you? What are you doing inside our house? Watching the stick meme act like this, Zhang Guohui was really angry and laughed. Get out of the way, said the guest. He is not a person with a good temper. Grandma, someone is bullying me, "Grandma, Grandma." The boy immediately shouted out. At the entrance of the Jia family, an old lady with triangular eyes hurriedly walked out. "Who is it? Who's bullying my precious grandson again? I can't think of life anymore, can I?" he shouted while speaking at the same time. Two figures also walked out of Zhang Guohui's house. One is Jia Dongxiu, and the other is the female lead of the courtyard, Qin Huairu. Suddenly, the four of them looked at each other, while the three of them looked at Zhang Guohui as if they had seen a ghost. Jia Zhang was puzzled. "Zhang Guohui, how did you come back?" Jia Dongxiu and his wife were also a bit confused, and then their hearts tightened, with a forced smile on their faces. "Brother Guohui, you're back. Why didn't you even tell your brothers?" "Hee hee. Hee hee." Zhang Guohui asked in response, "Why, you have such great authority. I have to give you a report when I go back to my own home now. Also, let's talk about it. What's going on?" Zhang Guohui stared awkwardly at the Jia Dongxiu couple. Jia Zhang's eyes flashed with a hint of disgust. "What are you saying? What are you saying? We thought nobody wanted this room, so we moved in." "Oh. It means the door was pried open by you. So what if Jia Zhang pried it open?" The courtyard suddenly became lively. Yi Zhonghai, Lu Haizhong, and the belated Yan Bugui all came over. Of course, there are also foolish pillars, Xu Damao, and others. Seeing the person in front of me, everyone present dropped their chin to the ground. "Zhang Guohui. How did he come back? Oh, there's a good show to watch now. Huh, Jia Zhang has taken over their house and now the main owner has returned." Even Yi Zhonghai was a bit confused. "I won't say anything about this guy coming back, he's wearing a police uniform. It's not easy to provoke." Yi Zhonghai came to a conclusion in his heart. Chapter 003. Jia Zhang's Prison, People Numb. You are listening at novelfull.audio. No one expected that the helpless little boy who had lost both parents would come back. That's why. In the second year of Zhang Guohui's stay, Yi Zhonghai allowed Jia Dongxiu and his family to move in to help the Jia family and stabilize their elderly care. The reason is also very appropriate. After Dong Su got married, he had 2 more children in his family. A family of 5 only had 1 Kong, which was really not enough to live in. Besides, Zhang Guohui has been away for so long. Who knows if he can come back? If he doesn't live in the house, it's useless. Let's move in and borrow it. At this point, the scene of the dove occupying the magpie's nest has occurred. Jia Dongxiu and Qin Huairu moved to Zhang Guohui's house and started their sweet little days. Yi Zhonghai walked up to Zhang Guohui with a forced smile on his face. "Guohui, are you making a name for yourself? Are you wearing police uniforms?" Zhang Guohui was too lazy to answer. "Thanks to the care of the party and the country, I have been given the opportunity to not starve to death outside. I saved you so much and made you happy." Yi Zhonghai's old face couldn't hold back. For so many years, since becoming this old man, few people have spoken to him like this. But after all, I am at fault. Ding, anger from Yi Zhonghai +1. The system quickly received a prompt. Yi Zhonghai smiled and said, "I'm sorry for this misunderstanding. What I thought was that you're not here, and this room is also empty. Don't waste it." So after discussing, the Jia family moved in. Then he glanced at Jia Dongxiu and others again and said, "Since you're back now, I'll let Dongxiu and the others move out." Yi Zhonghai's words fell. Jia Zhang, Jia Dongxiu and others couldn't bear it anymore. "What?" Jia Zhang's voice was sharp and sharp. "Why, who knows if anyone wants your room? If I move in, it will become mine." Jia Dongxiu also felt unwilling. After all, a house these days, especially a house in the capital, is of great value. Jia Dongxiu said, "Zhang Guohui, why don't we do this? We're used to living in this house now. Why don't you move into our house and let's change our houses? Listening to these incredible speeches, Zhang Guohui took a deep breath. Having lived in my house for so many years without a word of gratitude, now let me move out of my house. Are you really that one? You don't want any face at all. He, who are you talking about? Jia Dongshu's face was full of disbelief. Give you face and call you Guohui brother, do you really consider yourself a scallion? Zhang Guohui is not used to it at all. Pop. Reaching out was a slap, which landed cleanly on Jia Dongshu's face, emitting a loud sound. Jia Dongshu didn't react, and after a small spin, he sat down on the ground. Ding, the resentment value from Jia Dongshu +1. Ding, the resentment value from Jia Dongshu +1. Everything is so caught off guard. Yi Zhonghai roared, Zhang Guohui, why are you hitting someone? We're still discussing it, aren't we? You actually hit my son. Jia Zhang then revealed her ferocity and began to grit her teeth and claws at Zhang Guohui. This is to make Zhang Guohui lose his composure. Fortunately, the second before Zhang Guohui planned to take action, Zhonghai stopped him. He's not stupid, no matter how much they say he's a police officer. Old sister.in.law, old sister.in.law, calm down and let me handle it, okay? Jia Zhang held her in both hands with a determined expression, hit my son. Alright, let's not even think about returning this house to our Jia family. Zhang Guohui smiled and nodded. Yi Zhonghai said, Guohui, you too. Just speak well. Looking at Zhang Guohui's eyes, he didn't finish a sentence. Zhang Guohui's plan comes from the heart. Since the beasts do not speak of martial arts, there is no need to be polite myself. Zhang Guohui. Now let me talk about your behavior. Jia Zhangshi, you have illegally occupied someone else's property and openly pried open their door, which is already a crime. Please wait for me to deal with you later. As for you. Zhang Guohui looked at Jia Dongshu, who was covering his face on the ground. Let me ask you again, do you want to move or not? I don't. This was Jia Dongshu's last stubbornness. See, you. Yi Zhonghai couldn't even stop him. He had realized that Zhang Guohui in front of him was definitely not an easy person to deal with, let alone the means of handling things. How decisive. Zhang Guohui said, okay, you don't want anything in the room either. Just get out of here. If anyone steps into this door without my permission again, I will greet them. Oh. Everyone was stunned. Now, is that good neighbor willing to help me report to the police? I can't pull myself away. After all, he is the only one now. Xu Damao, who doesn't mind the big things, is happy to watch the excitement. Zhang Guohui, I will go and report to the police for you. Zhang Guohui smiled and said, I'll treat you to a drink later. Okay. Xu Damao. Yi Zhonghai shouted a few times, but Xu Damao's figure was already like a loach, slipping away early. This bastard. Now. It's Yi Zhonghai's turn to panic. Zhang Guohui, do you think it's necessary to do things so excellently when you just came back and everyone is a neighbor? Don't call the police, don't worry, I will definitely let Dongshu move out. It's too late. Zhang Guohui firmly refused. Yi Zhonghai's heart has cooled to the bottom. Glancing at Jia Dongshu with a resentful expression. How many times have you said it? Don't be impulsive. Don't be impulsive. Sigh. Everyone waited with peace of mind for the police to come. It has to be said that Xu Damao is quite efficient in handling affairs. Before long, the police arrived, and the leader was the director of the security bureau. I heard there will be a police call here. Upon inspection by the security guard, isn't this the room where Zhang Guohui is located? Don't worry, why don't you come by yourself? Zhang Guohui. Director, and this way, I called the police. Externally, Zhang Guohui still has a sense of propriety. Zhang Guohui pointed at Jia Zhangshi and said, "This is the person who broke the lock on my house while I was not around and lived in my house for several years. I'm not willing to return it now, so I called the police and hope director and can handle it." Zhang Guohui bit the word handle very hard. National Security Council. Chapter 004. Police move in, animals panic. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. And I hope she can pay the corresponding price. Zhang Guohui said so. Ding the resentment value from Jia Zhang's family +1. Ding the resentment value from Jia Dongxiu +1. Ding the resentment value from Yi Zhonghai +1. Three beasts cast a hateful gaze at Zhang Guohui. The security country looked at a few people in a bad mood. Is that right? I understand now. Don't worry, we will definitely give you an explanation about this matter. Bullying the martyrs' families, the security country has no intention of lightly bypassing a few people. Do you have anything else to say? Seeing that the police had taken action seriously, Yi Zhonghai felt a bit panicked and quickly explained, No. We have already planned to return it, really. Dongxiu, Huiru, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and move out. Jia Dongxiu and Qin Huiru nodded hurriedly, intending to move out their furniture from the house over the years. However, Zhang Guohui still stopped him. And with a smile, he said, Wait. During my absence, who can make it clear that the furniture inside the house belongs to you? I think since I'm in my room, everything inside should be mine. Since it's not possible to say it right, then it's inevitable that the beasts will have to pay something. Just moving out like this, really treating Zhang Guohui like a bully. Ah. Jia Dongxiu is confused. No, the furniture inside really belongs to us. Our neighbors here can testify. Oh. Is that right? The security guard looked at the crowd watching the commotion. A group of people have never seen this posture before. Shake their heads one after another, indicating that they don't know, or they just keep their heads down and don't speak. Jia Dongxiu. Animal. With a furious scolding in his heart, he gritted his teeth and said decisively, Okay, the furniture is all Zhang Guohui. We just need to move it out alone. So my mom. Jia Dongxiu's idea is to move out on his own and make concessions, and Zhang Guohui will also make concessions. Don't let Jia Zhang take her away. And Bao Guo looked at Zhang Guohui. Zhang Guohui said indifferently, as the saying goes, death is a crime that can be avoided and life is a crime that cannot be escaped. I think it is appropriate to receive some lessons and punishment. Who else will take our laws seriously in the future? The security guard nodded and said, Yes, they must be punished accordingly. Our police station will notify you of the specific outcome of the handling. Take away this Jia Zhang family. The two police officers immediately walked towards Jia Zhang's family. Jia Zhang's family is numb. The house has been returned to you by Zhang Guohui, and you have taken advantage of it. Are you still unwilling to let yourself go? Isn't it safe to compensate madam and then surrender troops? Jia Zhang simply sat down on the ground. Shouting loudly, the police are bullying people, the police are bullying people. Is there any natural reason to bully people in broad daylight? Step aside, don't touch me. Jia Zhang started playing his old tricks, rolling around and playing pranks. As soon as the two police officers made a move, Jia Zhang rolled on the ground, causing the two police officers to look at the security country in confusion. And Baiguo is also confused. He has been the director for so many years, and this is the first time he has seen such a person. Are you really using the law as a joke? Do you really think there's nothing you can do about throwing and rolling around? The security country waved its hand. One of the police officers took out a pair of silver handcuffs the next second. It looks particularly dazzling under today's sunlight. Click. Click. After 2 crisp sounds, he put it on Jia Zhang's hand. Take it away. Yes. Gulu. The whole courtyard secretly swallowed saliva. This work efficiency is a bit too crisp and efficient, isn't it? Mom. Jia Dongxiu let out a howl. Yi Zhonghai quickly pulled to prevent this foolish boy from doing anything out of line and being taken away. Security Guo frowned and looked at the crowd, saying calmly, "This is the end of violating the law. I hope all citizens present can become legitimate citizens and try not to do anything that violates the legal red line. Otherwise, the outcome would be like this. Alright, take it with you." Yes. And Bao Guo looked at Zhang Guohui again and saluted, "Comrade Zhang Guohui, the country will always be your strongest shield. If you receive any unfair treatment, just come to me." Yes. Zhang Guohui stood straight and retaliated. In fact, the following 2 sentences are meant for others to listen to. Do martyrs dare to bully? Otherwise, you guys will die. Looking at Zhang Guohui, dressed in police uniform and handsome, many people were trembling in their hearts. Will the police be able to stay in the courtyard as before? And Bao Guo led the team to leave. Zhang Guohui patted his hands lightly and said, "It's done. Does anyone have any further questions? Master Yi, do you have anything else to say?" Ding the resentment value from Yi Zhonghai +1. Feeling full of resentment in his heart, he happily said, No, it's just a misunderstanding. Once it's resolved, it's good. Once it's resolved, it's good. Zhang Guohui, you bastard. Woo-woo. Jia Dongxiu on one side was almost bent to death at this time. He was refused to say anything, and his mother went in. While angrily cursing Zhang Guohui, he sat on the ground crying. Zhang Guohui smiled and said, "What's wrong? Do you still have something to say to me?" As Jia Dongxiu was about to curse even harder, Yi Zhonghai quickly stopped him and said, "I'm sorry, children don't understand. They don't understand. Zhang Guohui, don't argue with him." Zhang Guohui shook his hand. "Let's go, Xu Damao. Could you please take care of what happened earlier? I'll treat you to dinner." Okay, ha ha ha. Can you have a good meal?" Xu Damao suddenly felt that he was not running in vain. Zhang Guohui's idea is quite simple. Can't everyone offend in this courtyard? It's also quite good to recruit some people appropriately. Looking at Xu Damao and Zhang Guohui's back, Jia Dongxiu gritted his steel teeth with a thud. Xu Damao. Zhang Guohui. You two, let me see. Jia Dongxiu watched as the 2 of them left, clenching their fists tightly. When did his Jia family suffer such a big loss? Chapter 005. 2 People Revenge Xu Damao. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Since then, I have been Yi Zhonghai's disciple. In addition, Jia Zhang's presence in the courtyard is equivalent to that of a shrew. If something happens in the courtyard, Jia Zhang will play a rogue role, and Yi Zhonghai will still stand on the side of the Jia family. So much so that the status of the Jia family once soared in the courtyard. How many years have passed, this is the first time I've suffered such a loss. Everyone in the courtyard looked at each other, and Yi Zhonghai said, "Alright, it's not a big deal. What should we do? Dongxiu, silly pillar, come with me to the deaf old lady's house." Oh. Here we go. 4 people gathered together. Yi Zhonghai said, "Madam, it's a mess. This Zhang Guohui is simply arrogant and has caused such a thing since he came back. Isn't it enough to return the house? If we insist on sending Jia and Zhang inside, it's not enough. We even took over the furniture of Dongxiu's house, it's like robbery." Yi Zhonghai accused Zhang Guohui of his wrongdoing. Jia Dongxiu gritted his teeth and said, "And that bastard Xu Damao, he's helping Zhang Guohui report to the police." Silly Zhu rubbed his nose and said, "That guy is not a good person from the beginning. I kept talking nonsense about what Qin and I had in the workshop. I was kind-hearted and gave the Dongxiu brothers a few leftovers. This guy just tarnished my reputation like this. I didn't expect that silly Xu would become a little licking dog at this moment. Actually, it's normal. After his father Hidaching left, Yi Zhonghai, the deaf old lady, regarded silly Xu as the second choice for the elderly. The courtyard also faces the silly pillar. In addition, being close to the deaf old lady Yi Zhonghai, the relationship with the Jia family is naturally good. The deaf old lady slammed the table hard after listening to these words. Does Zhang Guohui really think that no one can control him anymore? And he also got together with Xu Damao. What kind of people are really together? Silly Zhu agreed, that's right, especially Xu Damao. Jia Dongxiu also said, Madam, my mother has entered now, and I can't swallow this breath. Yi Zhonghai touched his chin and said, the key is that Zhang Guohui's identity is not ordinary either. He's a police officer, why don't you deal with him? Deaf old lady. First, deal with Xu Damao and let him, Zhang Guohui, see if he can provoke us. Humph, what good end can we have? Yes. I think there's no problem. I've been wanting to clean up that bad guy for a long time, said silly Zhu with a crunching sound on his knuckles over here. Zhang Guohui smiled and handed Xu Damao a cigarette. Damao brothers, it's been so many years since we last met. You're still so helpful. Thanks to you for this. Xu Damao scratched his head awkwardly and said, no, I just saw that they were unhappy. Especially silly Zhu Yi Zhonghai, Jia Dongxiu, and the others. Speaking of these people, Xu Damao gritted his teeth in hatred. I usually bully me a lot, but the key is that every time Yi Zhonghai, who is an old man who never dies, faces them. Finally, when faced with the opportunity to deal with them, can I not take action? Ha ha ha. Zhang Guohui nodded to himself. Although Xu Damao is widely recognized in this courtyard as having many ulterior motives and bad intentions. But Zhang Guohui doesn't mind at all. There are no eternal enemies, nor are there eternal friends. As long as there is a common enemy, it is a friend. Zhang Guohui said, then you have to be careful. When I looked at Jia Dongxiu's eyes just now, I wished I had eaten you. It's okay, Jia Dongxiu's small body can't beat me. Xu Damao looked indifferent. The two continued chatting for a while before Xu Damao left. Looking at this, I'm planning to follow Zhang Guohui's lead. After Xu Damao left, Zhang Guohui opened the system. I collected a total of 20 resentment points for this incident. Ding the resentment value from Jia Zhang's family +1. Well, Jia Zhang is still contributing. Open allocation. In the courtyard, each person's template appears on top of Zhang Guohui's system. He Yuzhu. The current dark side, 30%, this kid has a dark side, isn't he? After thinking for a while, Zhang Guohui understood that he should have conspired with Jia Dongxiu's wife at this moment. Yi Zhonghai. Current dark side, 40%, deaf old lady. Current dark side, 50%, Qin Huairu. The current dark side, 15%, dot. Some of the remaining people have more or less dark sides. The most common ones are the deaf old lady and Yi Zhonghai. The dark side. It's just the little known side of a person's heart, whether it's calculation or desire, it's just a matter of how much. Looking at the 20 resentment points in my hand. Zhang Guohui doesn't lack anything, he doesn't plan to add anything. But I decided to magnify the dark side of silly Zhu and Jia Dongxiu. Use half each. Ding, congratulations on the successful use of the host. By now, the dark side of the silly pillar went straight to 40%. And Jia Dongxiu's dark side also reached 35%. Complete all of this. Zhang Guohui got up and walked around the room. There are all kinds of daily necessities, furniture, and so on. These were all moved over by Jia Dongxiu and Qin Huairu. It's just a matter of taking care of it, isn't it? However, there are some personal items that Zhang Guohui immediately responds to. I have decided to replace some and tidy up my house properly. On the other side, the two people who magnified the dark side quickly received feedback. We just finished mentioning Xu Damao here. Silly Zhu couldn't help but think in his heart. If it weren't for him spreading the news about himself and Qinhuairu, how could he have gone further? He must have been hitting too lightly in his daily life. And Jia Dongshu's reaction here is also there, but there is no obvious foolishness. Jia Dongshu clenched his fist. Dog days Zhang Guohui, let you have a few good days first, and wait for me to deal with you later. As for Xu Damao, this bastard, Don't think I don't know, I often tease my wife while I'm not around. The dark side and resentment have magnified a lot, but they have not directly lost their intelligence. For now, these few people all know that Zhang Guohui is not easy to mess with. We all plan to teach Xu Damao a lesson first. P.S. On the first day of a new book, kneel down and ask for a flower evaluation ticket, with free monthly data. This is very important for a new book. If there are any, tomorrow will be 10 shifts directly, keep your promises. Chapter 006. Silly Pillar Ambushes Xu Damao. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After finishing these, Zhang Guohui locked the door and planned to go out. Taking advantage of the advantages comes from taking advantage of the advantages, but it's a bit cheap, which feels quite strange. Guohui, go out. Yan Fugui stuttered and greeted Zhang Guohui. Zhang Guohui nodded and said, go out and buy some daily necessities and exchange some things at home. Yan Fugui said, didn't the Jia family take everything with them? Didn't they have everything they should have? For someone like Zhang Guohui who takes advantage of everything, there is nothing to say. Well, buy some for me to use. Line by line. After waiting for Zhang Guohui to leave, Yan Fugui muttered from behind, even the third master didn't shout, this child. Why has the change been so significant? As for how many animal masters to shout for? Zhang Guohui doesn't have that hobby. Ah. Yan Fugui patted his head when he remembered something. I forgot to say, he can't give it to me, Zhang Guohui. This is what happened. No, we have to wait here. And here. As soon as Zhang Guohui leaves, Xu Damao over there also plans to go out. Yan Fugui. Go out, Damao. Xu Damao is in a good mood today, humming a small tune and enjoying himself. Well, a leader called me to drink, this good thing is coming all day long. After saying hello, I walked out the door. In the dark. Xu Damao's every move was watched by his two eyes. It is precisely Jia Dongshu and Silly Zhu who have magnified the dark side. Jia Dongshu. Pillar, this is a good opportunity. Xu Damao happened to be out. When he comes back, why don't we wait to ambush him? Silly Zhu's eyes twirled stealthily. That's a good idea. By the way, you can call a few more people over. This time, you must tidy up this guy and be honest. Jia Dongshu looked happy and said, no problem, I have many card friends there. After thinking for a moment, Silly Zhu waved at Jia Dongshu and said, by the way, let me tell you something. It was the old lady who taught me. When I catch Xu Damao, I'll kick him down. Kill this dog day. Haha. You still need to raise the pillar. That's. Let's go, get ready quickly. Who knows when this kid will come back? The two of them were in a hurry and went to prepare. Over here. Zhang Guohui went directly to the supply and marketing cooperative. The food, drink, and other necessities are all exchanged, and Zhang Guohui also has tickets for places that require tickets. Where money is needed, Zhang Guohui is not short of money. Is it nice to tidy up the house and have a wife? The blanket, mattress, bed sheets, toiletries, and Zhang Guohui have all been replaced. Replace the things used on the stove as well. In the end, he couldn't even take it himself and had to spend 50 cents to find a porter. After buying all the necessary items, Zhang Guohui stopped. That's about it. Spending too much money can easily bring unnecessary trouble to oneself. When following the porter back to the courtyard. Approaching the door, Zhang Guohui spotted 2 or 3 sneaky young people. This era is collectively known as street wanderers, who are generous in their behavior. From afar, a few people spotted Zhang Guohui and hurriedly ran away when they saw his clothes. Zhang Guohui frowned and said, "Revenge yourself." It doesn't seem like it. Just as he walked to the door, Jia Dongshu came out. Look left, look right. Jia Dongshu was puzzled and said, "Alas, didn't you say you were waiting for me at the door?" After searching around, a face that he wished he could take a few bites fell into Jia Dongshu's eyes. Zhang Guohui also noticed Jia Dongshu. The two of them glanced at each other, but neither of them paid attention. Humph. Zhang Guohui is too lazy to pay attention. Help the porter move these things inside. Yan Bugui waited at the door for so long, finally waiting for Zhang Guohui to return. Take a look. Yan Bugui exclaimed, "Good guy. Guohui, are you going out to buy something? Are you moving all the supply and marketing cooperatives back?" Zhang Guohui looked at a car full of things and found that there were indeed quite a few. What's wrong with this? Some things are obstructing the eyes and can be replaced as soon as possible. Yan Bugui gave a thumbs up and said, "You're so bold." Ah, Guohui. Yan Bugui approached Zhang Guohui with small steps, looking like 2 close friends. Guohui, since you're planning to exchange these things, isn't keeping the ones you don't want in the room also occupying space? Why don't you just give it to me? No way. As soon as Yan Bugui finished speaking, Jia Dongshu beside him couldn't help but speak out. Jia Dongshu said, "Those things and furniture are originally my family's, and if you give them to me, they are also for me. Zhang Guohui, you can't give it to Mr. San. Since you don't want it, why don't you just return it to my house?" Zhang Guohui smiled at the words. "Jia Dongshu, are you not mistaken? Since that's my house, how can you prove that what's inside is yours? Also, how do I handle my things at home? Is it none of your business?" Jia Dongshu took a puff. If his gaze could kill, Zhang Guohui probably wouldn't even be standing here. Unfortunately, it cannot. However, if you want it, it's not impossible, Zhang Guohui said with a change of tone. "What's going on?" Jia Dongshu ignited some hope again. "Spend money to buy it back, it's useless for me anyway." Jia Dongshu. Sending money to one's own enemies. Jia Dongshu is not a fool. Humph. With a cold snort, he decided to ignore Zhang Guohui for now. There will be a way to deal with it in the future. Now, let's go find his own card friends. Cleaning up Xu Damao is important. Zhang Guohui sneered, "My brain is sick." Then he looked at Yan Bugui again and said, "He doesn't want it, do you want it? It's a cheap sale, I'll package it for 5 yuan and give it to you. There aren't many things." Zhang Guohui pointed to the car behind him and said, "I plan to change everything here." Yan Bugui smoothly licked his lips. 5 yuan. Buying it back and selling it to a rag collector seems to not be a loss, but it can still earn some profit. I just offended Jia Dongshu. Yan Bugui gritted his teeth and said, "Bye." Zhang Guohui. Okay, come with me. Damn it. Yan Bugui rubbed his hands and planned to have a big fight. On the other side, Jia Dongshu has found his card friend and joined forces with Silly Pillar. A few people are hiding in the alley, waiting for Xu Damao to come home. Chapter 007. Xu Damao's life roots gone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Moving new furniture, Zhang Guohui helped the porter to move it and replace it with new furniture. As for those old furniture, it seems very convenient for Yan Bugui to handle them. Yan Bugui called over his 2 sons and even helped Zhang Guohui clean up the house with him. A 40-year-old man, soon tired and sweating profusely. But either they say that Yan Bugui can live a good life, or they still enjoy it tirelessly. Not much. The house is almost cleaned up. The new furniture was moved in, and the room was completely refreshed. Subsequently, Yan Bugui happily delivered 5 yuan. Yan Bugui said, "Guohui, your money, haha. Remember to call me when there are such good things in the future." Zhang Guohui. Okay, I got it. Then he gave the porter 50 cents, which was considered a complete tidying up. Entering the new house, my mood couldn't help but improve a bit. Zhang Guohui's room is the largest in the courtyard, with 2 bedrooms, a living room, and a kitchen. No wonder the beasts can calculate this. Zhang Guohui picked up a broom and other tools from the corner and roughly tidied up the room. I can only say that I can barely see through it, after all, I am a big man. After sweeping the dust on the ground, it was in the dustpan, and Zhang Guohui planned to throw it out. At the same time, I waited for a long time. The person in front of Jia Dongxiu became a bit impatient. I said, "Dongxiu, will that guy come or not?" "Yeah, I've been waiting for so long." Silly Xu scolded, "Just wait patiently. If we clean up this guy this time, it will benefit us all." Someone said, "No, I'm worried about the police officer in your yard. He even saw us when he came back today." Silly Xu chuckled, "Zhang Guohui, don't worry about that guy. If it weren't for him being a police officer, I would have dealt with him together. That's it." When Jia Dongxiu mentioned this name, he gritted his teeth in hatred. While several people were chatting, Jia Dongxiu pointed to the front and said, "Ah, is that Xu Damao?" "Okay. It seems so." Silly Xu squinted his eyes and said, "That's right, it's that guy. Quick, fast, prepare quickly." The thought of being able to personally clean up Xu Damao, this foolish pillar, makes me extremely excited. Dog thing, if you want to blame me, just blame your cheap mouth. Let Jia Dongxiu be on guard against me. Humph. Xu Damao's mood has changed and he has become a beauty. The Jia family had to tidy up today, and the leader even invited him to have a drink. This good thing is really coming all day. Great. Shoo, shoo, shoo. Whistling, Xu Damao suddenly felt an urge to pee. No, let's solve it on the spot. The sliding door curtain started scattering towards the corner of the wall. Silly pillar. This is an opportunity. Up, up. Seeing that Xu Damao's attention was not here, Silly Xu made a quick decision. The 4 of them rushed forward in a lively manner. Xu Damao. Your grandson, I made you look good today. Suddenly, a sound echoed from behind. Xu Damao quickly turned around to look. Accompanied by a turning body, Zalala. Silly Xu led the charge, and Jia Dongxiu followed closely. A stream of urine rushed towards the 2 of them and they started to vomit. I'm Chow. Xu Damao, your uncle. Silly Xu and Jia Dongxiu in front got wet one after another. Ah, ha ha ha. You 2 are not living. Should be. I'll go. Half laughing, Xu Damao couldn't laugh anymore. Silly Xu, sorry, I didn't mean to. Xu Damao quickly apologized when he saw that this battle was not right. But it's useless. I was already extremely angry with Xu Damao, but with such another outburst, Silly Xu became furious. Sorry about your mother. Stupid pillar comes up with a punch. Give me a call. With a single command. 3 or 5 young men rushed over. He punched and kicked Xu Damao. While fighting, output in extremely obscene language. Grass your damn thing. Dog thing, I'm asking you to talk nonsense at the steel rolling mill again. Do dogs dare to have any thoughts about my wife? How dare you help Zhang Guohui report to the police? I can't deal with him, can't I deal with you? It's about getting on the feet again, and it's about outputting to Xu Damao's donkey face. Ouch. Xu Damao was hit and unable to move. At this moment, Silly Zhu and Jia Dongxiu exchanged a glance. Both of them understand each other's thoughts. Bang dang. Bang dang. 2 feet down, Xu Damao suffered unparalleled pain. Ah! This scream was like killing pigs in the neighboring village. Sigh. Zhang Guohui, who came out to take out the garbage, could hear clearly. Hurry to follow the sound and run over. From a distance, I saw several people outputting to one person. Although fighting is quite common in this era, he is still a police officer no matter what. Since you have seen it, let's take care of it. Stop it. Silly Zhu turned around and said, it's that bastard Zhang Guohui. Jia Dongxiu looked at Xu Damao on the ground and felt unsatisfied. However, he had no choice but to say, let's go, let's go. We've almost finished packing up. Zhang Guohui is a police officer who can't move. A few people scattered and fled. Zhang Guohui ran to the front. I'm Chao. Is it Xu Damao or someone lying on the ground? Guohui, help me. Watching Xu Damao's zipper open underneath, all footprints, he said this sentence and immediately passed out. Oh, looking at his back like a silly pillar, Jia Dongxiu, is he so ruthless? Is there so much resentment? But it's also great, isn't it another big achievement? I borrowed a cart from my neighbor to pull cow manure, and Xu Damao took the ladder to the hospital. To Zhang Guohui's surprise, he was pushed directly into the operating room. Not long after, the attending doctor came out. Hello, police officer. The patient's lower body was severely injured, and a high pill was severely damaged. If you know the patient's family, please come to the hospital as soon as possible. Ah! Zhang Guohui was stunned. Don't forget to ask, is the image big or not? The attending doctor said, based on the current situation, the patient is already infertile. Oh! Zhang Guohui was surprised and gave a bitter smile. How did Xu Damao's infertility come about? Okay, this kid is considered useless. Chapter 008. Su Fugui angrily smashes the glass of the Jia family. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In the ward. Xu Damao slowly woke up after the anesthesia had passed. Doctor. The attending doctor hurriedly said, the patient is awake. Comrade, please don't speak yet. We are suturing your wound. Xu Damao. Am I okay? The attending doctor was honest and said, so. Your high pill is broken and your lower body is torn. Are you married? Xu Damao shook his head. That's it, this injury directly caused your infertility. Ah. The doctor's words landed on Xu Damao's head like thunderbolts. Am I infertile? Can't we have children anymore? Looking at Xu Damao's appearance, the doctor can also understand. Counseling, young man, don't be discouraged when you're still young. There may be hope for treatment in the future. Just hope. The attending doctor said, after all, no one can say for sure about this kind of thing, let alone the poor medical level in our country. If we wait for it in the future. Before he could finish speaking, Xu Damao interrupted, wait, who brought me the doctor? A young man in police uniform. Fortunately. It's okay if it's not someone else. Now that such a thing has happened, Xu Damao naturally doesn't want others to know. After giving the attending doctor a good explanation, the other party agreed to help Xu Damao conceal his condition. After all, being unemployed in this era is too lost. Xu Damao still doesn't have a wife. If others knew about this, wouldn't Xu Damao be unable to find his wife? Outside the house, Zhang Guohui, who was planning to call out to Xu Damao's parents, was called in. Zhang Guohui walked into the operating room. Watching Xu Damao staring at the ceiling in a daze, Zhang Guohui let out a soft sigh. This guy doesn't even have a wife, can he not take it seriously? Damao. Zhang Guohui tried to shout. Xu Damao's gaze shifted. Guohui, Guohui, woo-woo. I have become an extinct household. It's all because of Guohui's silly pillars and Jia Dongshu. Woo-woo-woo. Zhang Guohui looked serious and said, I already know this. Sigh, Damao brothers, you want to be more open-minded. Don't worry, I will definitely handle this matter fairly for you. Who knew that Xu Damao almost jumped out of bed upon hearing this? No, 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 no. Ah. Zhang Guohui was puzzled. Xu Damao pursed his nose in tears, saying, Guohui, I'm still young and haven't married a wife yet. I don't want my life to be ruined. So I beg you to help me keep this news confidential. As for silly Zhu, I must retaliate against Jia Dongshu one by one. Please, don't let anyone else know. Xu Damao's state of mind is truly beyond the comparison of ordinary people. Zhang Guohui. I promise you. So Jia Dongshu and silly Zhu just let go like this. That definitely won't work. Xu Damao waved at Zhang Guohui and the two discussed countermeasures. Zhang Guohui is walking on the way to the courtyard house. As I walked, I lit a cigarette and thought. The enlargement of the dark side does indeed have an effect, and the effect is quite good. As for Xu Damao, he must really want to kill Jia Dongshu and silly Zhu now, right? What if it were to amplify Xu Damao's resentment value? Zhang Guohui came up with a good solution. Return to the courtyard. After notifying Xu Damao's parents, the rest of the matter has nothing to do with Zhang Guohui. Xu Damao's father came to the courtyard with a shovel. Is there still a way out? Grass. The glass of the silly Zhu family and the Jia family were smashed fiercely. Qin Huairu hurriedly ran out. Uncle Su, what are you doing? Later, Jia Dongshu pointed at Su Fugui and said, Old thing, you can try smashing my house again. I'll go to your mother. Upon hearing that his son had been beaten and hospitalized, Su Fugui was already enraged. Especially seeing Jia Dongshu so arrogant again. He immediately went up with a shovel. Facing Jia Dongshu's head with the back is just a slap. Banging. I'll go. What sounds good is good. Zhang Guohui next to him was overjoyed. Subsequently, the foolish pillar of the courtyard, Yi Zhonghai, and a woman hurriedly came out. Several people tried their best to stop the crazy Su Fugui. Jia Dongshu just missed a chubby beating. Yi Zhonghai said, Brother Su, what are you doing? It's so good. I'm good, your mother. Pooh. Facing Yi Zhonghai, there was a mouthful of thick phlegm on his face. See. Zhang Guohui took a deep breath of air. Fierce person. Compared to Xu Damao's father has a better past. You. What are you, silly Zhu, this turtle grandson, and Jia Dongshu, this bastard, have directly beaten my son to the hospital. Are you good at the end? I'm good at your mother. After speaking, there was another one. Yi Zhonghai was stunned. Looking at the two people. Silly Zhu and Jia Dongshu rightfully lowered their heads. The people of Yi Zhonghai are all numb. He asked you to teach Xu Damao a lesson, but it's not so straightforward, is it? Not only was he hospitalized, but he was also caught by someone else. Yi Zhonghai wiped his saliva off his face and hurriedly said, Uncle Su, don't get excited yet. Let's let the hospital take a look at Damao's condition first. The child's affairs are the big deal. Don't worry, these two little brats are right in the courtyard, they can't run away either. Upon hearing this, Su Fugui is indeed not as excited anymore. Throwing the shovel in his hand, okay, go to see my son first. If there are 3 short matches, your Jia family and your old He family will not feel better. Silly Zhu sneered and said, who are you scaring? I. Silly Zhu, shut up and you'll go to the hospital with me, Yi Zhonghai scolded. Oh. Yi Zhonghai glared at the silly pillar in anger. Alas, this elderly person is really good at finding things for themselves. Control is good, but you're too capable of causing trouble. Yi Zhonghai sighed in his heart, helpless. What else can he do with the elderly person he found? Help with the matter. A few people rushed from the courtyard to the hospital in a lively manner. As soon as you enter the door, Xu Damao still lay on the hospital bed with a bruised nose and swollen face, looking at the ceiling in despair, with no difference in their arrival. Still with a loveless expression. P.S. Kneel down and ask for free flower review tickets, monthly tickets, or a comment to let the author know that they are not alone. Thank you very much. Chapter 009. Xu Damao's Revenge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Son. Xu Damao's mother let out a scream. Su Fugui was also taken aback. Son, you. How could you be like this? Su's mother burst into tears with a loud cry, my son, how are you? The other members of the courtyard stood aside, unable to help but sigh. Is this silly pillar and Jia Dongxiu being ruthless enough to fight like this? Jia Dongxiu swallowed his saliva secretly, feeling uneasy in his heart. Silly Zhu, on the other hand, stood on the side with a completely indifferent demeanor and muttered softly, this can't die again. What are you worried about? What are you saying? Su Fugui stood up with a swoop and grabbed onto Silly Zhu's collar. Please tell me again. It's just that, isn't there anything wrong with it? I grass your uncle's silly pillar. Su Fugui punched and kicked the silly pillar. As Silly Zhu dodged, he pointed at Su Fugui and said, all right, I won't hit the old man, but if you push me too hard, don't blame me for being impolite. Silly Zhu was completely unaware of the seriousness of the matter at this moment. The doctor walked in at this moment. Be quiet and let the patient rest well. A few people finally calmed down. Su Fugui. Doctor, how is my son? Is there anything wrong? The attending doctor visited Xu Damao. Xu Damao kept winking. The doctor said, patient, the injury is quite serious, with multiple severe injuries throughout the body, especially on the waist, which is even more severe. I can't walk on the ground in the short term. Ah. Is there no other damage, then? Su Fugui asked with concern as he heard that his waist was seriously injured. No, the doctor tried to help Xu Damao keep it a secret. Well. That's good. Many people finally let go of the stones hanging in their hearts. At this moment, Yi Zhonghai licked his smiling face and said, it's okay, it's okay. It's just children playing around, don't worry, old Su. Silly Zhu and Jia Dongxiu have all borne the medical expenses. No way. Xu Damao, who had not spoken for a long time, spoke up. So what do you want? Silly Zhu asked unwillingly. Silly pillar, shut up. Do you still think things are not chaotic enough? Yi Zhonghai frowned and scolded. Silly Zhu pouted and walked to the side. Xu Damao said, this time, Silly Zhu and Jia Dongxiu beat me up like this. How could it be so simple? At the same time as bearing the cost of soup, medicine, and hospitalization, both of them must give me 30 yuan each as compensation. Ah. Yi Zhonghai said, no, Damao. This person is 30, and 2 people are 60. It doesn't even include medical expenses, is it too much? Silly Zhu. Yeah, you see, Xu Damao is still lively and lively. Jia Dongxiu. Yes, it's a bit too much, right? Xu Damao gritted his teeth and endured, how much? What about your mother? I even made you become infertile, how much is that? No, it must be given. Xu Damao refused at a step. Zhonghai shook his head and said, this really doesn't work. The Jia family's monthly living expenses are only 20 yuan. Aren't you taking the life of the whole family? Both sides will not compromise. Even Su Fugui came to Xu Damao. Son, isn't this a bit too much? Why don't you order less, whispered in a low voice Xu Damao. Xu Damao feels bitter in his heart. Dad, if you knew about your son's current situation, you wouldn't feel much at all. Xu Damao. Don't worry, I have a solution. Immediately afterwards, Xu Damao gave Zhang Guohui a wink. Zhang Guohui stood up at this moment and said, okay, what Xu Damao meant was to call the police if you don't give it. Xu Damao has already suffered serious injuries now, which is suspected of being surrounded and intentionally harmed. Silly Zhu Jiadongshu, you two should follow me back to the police station. Silly Zhu asked coldly, cut, isn't it just sitting for a few days? It's worth saving 30. Zhang Guohui smiled and said, how many days? These charges alone are enough for you to sit for 2 months. Alright, don't talk nonsense, let's go. As he spoke, he took out silver handcuffs from his waist, the same style as Jia and Zhang. Wait. Zhonghai quickly stopped him. Look at Xu Damao, then look at Zhang Guohui. I have already concluded in my heart that this is the bureau set up by Xu Damao and Zhang Guohui. But, knowing it clearly, there was a feeling of punching cotton again. There is no way to fool Zhang Guohui. Zhonghai said, We'll give it to you. This matter is private. There's no way, if both elderly people go in for 2 months, their reputation will be completely ruined after they come out. In this era, reputation is like a golden rice bowl. Another thing is that he relies on a foolish pillar to do things for his Zhonghai courtyard. This has all gone in, hasn't Zhonghai become a lonely family? Silly Zhu said, no, it's just that Mr. Xu Damao's cheap mouth provoked us. If he gets beaten, he deserves it. Why should he still give us money? I won't give it, I don't have any money. Master, I'll listen to you. Jia Dongshu seemed to have lost his point of opinion. Silly Zhu, come out with me for a moment. Oh. I don't know what Zhonghai said, but when he comes back, Silly Zhu will agree. But looking at the expression on his face, he's not very willing. At the same time. Ding the resentment value from Zhonghai +1. Ding the resentment value from Jia Dongshu +1. Ding the resentment value from Hiyuzhu +1. Ding, the resentment values of the 3 people are almost all on Zhang Guohui's side. It can be seen that there is a lot of resentment. He. Zhang Guohui stood aside completely indifferent. Su Fugui never expected that their family would earn nearly 80 yuan just like this. I was also overjoyed for a moment. Watching this scene, Zhang Guohui couldn't help but want to laugh. Anyway, all the hardships are for Xu Damao to bear, and it has nothing to do with him. After the crowd left, Xu Damao handed Zhang Guohui 20 yuan, and the two Zhang united. Xu Damao said, Brother Guohui, it's thanks to you this time. This is what I promised you. I'll definitely treat you to a drink when my buddies get better. Humph, silly Zhu, Jia Dongshu, wait for the 2 little brats for me. It's not Xu Damao who can make them better than me. Chapter 010. Xu Damao has already turned black. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Watching Xu Damao's teeth showing signs of cracking. Zhang Guohui smiled in his heart. Isn't this exactly what he wants? With Xu Damao's connections, dealing with silly Zhu and Jia Dongshu doesn't even require personal action. As long as these 3 people are in contact, is there anything else about him, Zhang Guohui? Of course there is. It is a good choice to provide advice and advice behind Xu Damao. Can Xu Damao end this matter by being beaten to become a eunuch? Just a few tens of yuan can make up for Xu Damao's injured soul. Impossible. At this moment, Zhang Guohui was very clear about Xu Damao's thoughts and designated that he wished he could kill two people. Zhang Guohui said, Damao, it's too difficult to say something unpleasant. There is Yi Zhonghai behind them, and there is a deaf old lady. You are completely alone in the courtyard, and it's too difficult to seek direct revenge. Zhang Guohui intentionally or unintentionally pointed it out. Xu Damao is also very aware of this. With a pitiful smile, he said, Guohui, don't worry. I'm not a fool, Xu Damao. You just have to wait and see. None of them can get along well. Zhang Guohui nodded and collected Xu Damao's money. This is what he should take. Brother, let's go first. If there's anything you need to say, just keep quiet. Okay, slow down on the way. Zhang Guohui waved his hand. Walk towards the courtyard. At the same time, the quadrangle is already in chaos. A few people just had a meeting, and this meeting is another one. The deaf old lady, Yi Zhonghai, Silly Zhu, and Jia Dongxiu gathered together. The deaf old lady patted the table and said, Pillar, Dongxiu, what do you want me to say about you? How can things be so unreliable? Even the foolish Pillar lowered his head in the face of the deaf old lady's scolding. It's not because of that guy Zhang Guohui. If it weren't for him standing with Xu Damao, we would definitely have succeeded, he said with a hint of dissatisfaction. Jia Dongxiu agreed, that's right, I don't think Xu Damao has anything to do with it. He's just making a big deal out of nothing. He must be intentionally trying to extort money. Yi Zhonghai spoke up and said, all right. Don't just know how to fight and fight all day. Now that the two villains are together, you should consider what to do in the long run. Silly Zhu scratched his head and agreed, so we'll just let Zhang Guo go like this. That guy didn't cheat me too much money. For Zhang Guohui, to be honest, Yi Zhonghai currently doesn't have many good solutions. After all, they are police officers. Wait a few days, when the wind blows down, I'll come up with a solution for you. You two should be honest these days. Don't provoke Zhang Guohui if you have nothing to do. Oh. Front yard. Yan Fugui. Hey, Guohui, you're back. How is Xu Damao doing? Zhang Guohui lit a cigarette on his own and said, it's okay, the hospital is treating the injury. It should be over in a few days. It's okay. As he spoke, Yan Fugui noticed the cigarette in Zhang Guohui's hand. Zhang Guohui, how are you doing these days? You've started smoking Chinese cigarettes now. Zhang Guohui looked at the cigarette in his hand and thought to himself, it's not his own money. What's bothering him? Xu Damao gave it. Tisk, Xu Damao is not bad either. Jia Dongxiu. This his mother is my money. Using Laozi's money to buy Zhonghua cigarettes for Zhang Guohui. I can't bear to smoke such a good cigarette myself. Jia Dongxiu looked disgusted. Dog day. He cursed and returned to the Jia family. Qin Huairu walked over. Dongxiu, why are you so angry? Jia Dongxiu. Isn't that the damn Zhang Guohui? Take my money to buy Zhonghua cigarettes, I haven't smoked such good cigarettes myself. Qin Huairu was doing the work in her hand and said, Dongxiu, you're really talking about Zhang Guohui. Why do you have to target our family? Who said it's not? Just when the two are still talking. Bangji ran over and grabbed Jia Dongxiu's pants, saying, Dad, why don't we go back to our house? Bongan wants to stay at that house. Bang Ji is currently unaware of the situation. Jia Dongxiu touched his son's head and said, My dear son, our house has been taken over by that dog. There's no way, our family can only squeeze into this room in the future. That's not a bed that sleeps many people. Jia Dongxiu and his wife looked at each other and said helplessly, "There's nothing we can do, it's all because of that guy Zhang Guohui." "Is that the person who lives in our house now?" "Yes, it's that dog Day." When Zhang Guohui returned, it was already dark after packing up. There are quite a few things to eat in the kitchen. How could when it comes to Zhang Guohui's hands, it would be great if he could cook these foods well, without worrying about what tastes good or bad. It's good if you can eat enough. Eating what he had made for the time being called rice, Zhang Guohui couldn't help but mutter. Finding a wife is really urgent. I didn't feel it before. I really understand now, and on one hand, Zhang Guohui doesn't want to keep using his right hand in the future. I have to switch from manual to automatic. After finishing these, lie in bed. Looking at the system with over 100 resentment points, this is a gift package for beginners. Leave 50 to exchange for something, and the remaining 50 Zhang Guohui points on Xu Damao's panel. Originally only 40% of the dark side, Xu Damao was instantly pulled down to 90%. Zhang Guohui was overjoyed. I have a vague expectation in my heart. What kind of performance will Xu Damao, who has turned black, have? P.S. Everyone, kneel down and beg for flower evaluation tickets, monthly tickets, free data, none at all. The author is really flustered, isn't there anyone reading them? It has been updated 10 times.